You know, years ago, people would tell me I have a lot of interesting stories and I should write a book. So that kind of planted the seed a little bit. And I thought about it. When I wasn't working, helping people buy and sell a home, I got into creative writing as one of my favorite things to do. And I actually looked into getting a book published, and I put together a book that's called Humblings of an Everyday Man. The only reason I bring that up is it's a collection of stories, and they all end with a positive ending. And it's my observations of life, my children, just people in general. And I thought I could share one of the chapters with you today. It's only a few pages long. Each article is actually a couple pages long, so it's not a really long read. But I thought today might be appropriate. And this one is called Hope. And it's from an actual event that happened with me and my then 14-year-old son. This is called Hope. Hope doesn't sell, neither does faith, neither does good news, or so it would seem. Yet hope is mysterious, so is faith. Even though they have different meanings in the dictionary, they are synonymous in their power. Here's one such example. My 14-year-old son brought over his rocket for his weekend visit with me. After all, it was a perfect June day for rocketry. After finding a huge open school soccer field away from the trees, I took stock in the speed and direction of the wind. I asked my son how far this rocket had gone at his last launch back home at his mom's. I asked specifically how high and how far it drifts. He says, "Not that far." Having had some experience with Murphy's Law, I decided to compensate even further since he said this was a new, more powerful engine. Yep, you guessed it, a magnificent launch. Then a bursting open of the Death Star nose cone. 4 orange streamers majestically dropping to Earth, and behind it, on a second parachuted section, the cardboard tube body, both heading for the trees. Miraculously, the heavier Death Star portion came through the myriad branches and hit the ground, but the tube section disappeared. Our 4-man search party, me and my 3 sons, and the thousands of mosquitoes, combed the woods next to the marsh, and to no avail. And now we were losing light. We had to stop the search for the night. My oldest son didn't want to give up. "I just want to know where it is," he said, choking back tears. "I spent hours putting it together in all my monthly savings to buy it. What are we going to do?" You know, there's something unexplainably heart-wrenching seeing someone you love in pain, to where every once in a while the right words come out of my mouth. "We'll come back in the morning when we have fresh light. All we can do right now is hope." Sometimes hope is all we have, and for now it was enough. He reluctantly agreed. The following morning, he and I came back alone, fully scarred by bug bites from the night before. We could now at least see. He insisted we look around the area where the other piece had landed. I stepped into the marsh, got a soaker, fought through the brush, and got scratched, stabbed, and whipped by all the branches, twigs, and cattails that were scolding me for invading their world. Nothing. He was determined. He is a very tenacious young man. I finally decided through my limited physics reasoning that the bright orange and white parachute must still be up in the treetops somewhere. I scanned, and I kept hoping. I never really stopped hoping, but was cautiously skeptical. Had to be, to get him ready for a possible letdown. The trees were over 100 feet tall. I squinted and scanned further. Suddenly, the sunlight dusted the treetops, and there it was. Suddenly, I said, "I found it." He came running. Where? About 60 feet up against a branchless tree trunk. Flopped my son's rocket and shoot. "Okay, how do we get it down?" he asked. After exploring all logical options, I said, "The only thing we could hope for is come back tomorrow and see if the wind would shake it out of the trees." But it looked pretty tangled from being whipped around all night. I must admit, having lost a few kites to trees in my life, I think I lost hope. Fortunately, I kept my opinions to myself as we walked back home. "Can we come back tomorrow and see if it came down, Dad?" "Sure," I said. I pondered. Why hope when things seem hopeless? Why have faith in things and in people when so much of our world is filled with misery and injustice? The news is flooded with such stories daily. Christopher Reeve's quadriplegic state after a freak accident, missing children, war-torn countries, mudslides, earthquakes, floods, forest fires, and hopeless situations I can't even imagine. Or so it would seem. No, they don't always end happily. Yet I'm positive it would be an eye-opener for all of us if there were statistics that showed how many happy endings that were created by hope. Just to look at how many of our military were re-energized to go on to the next day because of an entertainer named Bob Hope. Coincidence? Maybe. But if you add all the seemingly endless bad news stories day to day and divide by 6 billion people on the planet Earth, what percentage of the populace was really affected? It's minuscule, less than 1/1,000,000%. And the hopeless cases that did have a joyous ending we'll rarely hear about. They're not interesting enough to make the news. Yet to the little boy whose rocket got caught in the tree, hope was everything. Go ahead. Hope for the best. Put a little faith in yourself, your situations, your fellow people. What do you have to lose? My son's mom called me after picking the boys up at the end of the weekend. It seems they were on their way home, and my 14-year-old tenacious son asked his mom to go by the woods for one last chance at the rocket. Gotta love him. As he walked up to the edge of the woods, there it was, waiting for him on the ground, left by hope. Hope you enjoyed that. Have a great holiday season.